Hello and welcome to the sidelines of the Pondy Literature Festival. I am now with Deep Halder, good friend, and my window to Bangladesh and West Bengal, one of the few who really covers that space and that subject matter with honesty and heart. Welcome, Deep, to Pondy Lit Fest.
Thank you, Alo.
And
glad to be here. It's as welcoming as it always was.
Thank you.
Meeting of great minds, and wonderful to be with all of you.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to host you. So, Deep has a book that's coming up that's called Being a Hindu in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Very intriguing title. But why are you concerned about the Hindus in Bangladesh?
That's a good question. I think I'll have some of it when the book officially launches in November. It's good you're asking me now, and it's the first interview I'm doing on the book. Because yes, I'm a Hindu from West Bengal, but I'm also the son of a refugee from what was East Bengal, which became East Pakistan and is now Bangladesh. And though I come from relative privilege than my co-writer of the book, Dr. Abhishek Vishwas, in the sense that my family had established itself after the partition on this side of the border, and I never had to live the experience of my father and forefather. But I think through stories that were told to me, through subtle discrimination, even while I was growing up, for being a Bangal is the somewhat pejorative term for Hindus who came from that side of the border to this side of the border during partition. Through the books I read, I have never been able to keep Bangladesh out of my mind. Bangladesh, I won't say Bangladesh, but East Bengal out of my mind, because Bangladesh is a later construct. It came in 1971. It was East Pakistan before. But for me, it was East Bengal. It is East Bengal. And my father was born there. My mother was born there. I have heard stories. I keep hearing stories. And now that my parents are old, the mind travels back to East Bengal, to what they left behind, to the food they ate, the fields they sort of that were there, to the houses they were born in, to the different dialect in which they spoke the Bengali language. So I have been with those stories all these years. So yeah, I mean, spiritually perhaps I am very close to Hindus in Bangladesh. So being Hindu in Bangladesh is not my story, but it is also my story. It's definitely the story of my father and my mother, as it is the story of Abhishek's father and mother, my co-writer. So I thought that perhaps is enough reason to attempt such an ambitious book. Ambitious in terms of you're telling the story of a people uh, who officially belong to another country. But do I not think of those people all the time? I do. Do I not feel a sense of awe and dread sometimes, and sadness most times when I go to Bangladesh? I do. So I think if there is an emotional connect like that, you can speak up for them.
Now, formation of East Pakistan and then the formation of Bangladesh. Your first book, Blood Island, talks about a bloody massacre of refugees who tried to actually eke out a living independently on their own. So we do know that 1947 onwards, there's been a steady trickle of Hindus coming in all the time because of state persecution, often state-sponsored persecution. How do you explain the few Hindus that persist to live in Bangladesh today? Who are they? Why are they going on living there? We know that Bangladesh has got Arabized over time. Islamization, we see the news, we've seen the governments that have come to power. So why are they continuing to stay there?
Let me answer it in a different way. Try and answer it in a different way. There are several vlogs and blogs and YouTube stories that I keep going back to when I researched my book, and even otherwise, even after that. One of the fascinating things, I think I spoke to you about it, that I found was from a Bengali Muslim YouTuber. In fact, he's Bangladesh's most famous YouTuber on travel and tourism. His name is Salauddin Suman, and he has millions of viewers. He's crazily popular in Bangladesh. He has a fascination for temples, and not just like the physical structure of temples, but their history, their myths. So he takes great pains to go to remote areas of Bangladesh. Not those sort of well advertised temples in Dhaka or elsewhere, but remote on top of a hill, and which is a very tricky terrain, and it's an arduous task to even reach that space. So he does that, and he tried to find out where in which temple the first Durga Puja took place in Bangladesh. In what is East Bengal, not even Bangladesh or East Pakistan, but in East Bengal. What was the first Durga Puja temple in East Bengal, and perhaps the first Durga Puja temple in all of Bengal? And that's the video, right? So I think, to come back to your question, if a Bengali Muslim is so fascinated, and he gets a lot of hate. If you read the comments, there are a lot of views, but there's also a lot of hate. And I asked him this question, why do you do it? And he says, because that's also my history. How can I say it's not my history? So imagine if a Bengali Muslim gentleman can be fascinated enough at some risk, I won't say great risk, at some risk to his life and living, in attempting a story like this through videos. And also it's history. I mean, a book should be written. I've told someone that it's a book what he has, because we should talk to scholars and religionists from this side of the border and try to find out that whether one of those temples is indeed the first temple where Durga Puja took place, or is there a temple on this side of the border which can claim to have a Durga Puja which was even before that. But imagine if a Muslim, and he's a practicing Muslim, he's not an ex-Muslim or an atheist, he doesn't call himself all that. If a Bengali Muslim can be interested in which temple the first Durga Puja took place, imagine a Bangladeshi Hindu. I have, in my sort of travels through Bangladesh over the past 2 years, and I try to move out of Dhaka as soon as I possibly can and go into the remote areas of Bangladesh, I have found the religiosity in Bangladeshi Hindus to be often more than at least the religiosity in Kolkata, where I stay, or in Delhi. They are more ritualistic, they are more spiritually connected often. I won't say it for all of them, than perhaps this side of the border. So for them, and I have asked them this, that why don't you, and some of them can perhaps shift to Bengal or to other parts of India or abroad. Why do you sort of not, there is a constant sense of threat, if not an actual threat to your life? Why do you not sort of leave? He said, how can I leave? This is where it is. My gods are here, my temples are here. And so they, not all of them, but many of them still feel Bangladesh is their land. And despite it being Muslim majority, or despite sort of attacks on Hindus in Bangladesh, many of them still do not sort of consider the option of moving out.
So you see, when Bangladesh was carved out of East Pakistan, Mujib's call was it was Bangladesh for the Bengali. So that Bangla identity is actually the plank on which he sort of fought. And at that point, one was under the impression that it would be inclusive of both Hindus and Muslims, because the constitution actually was supposed to be secular. So where do you think that vision of Mujib, of an inclusive Bangla identity reason for a nation to be formed, has gone diluted, or has probably even got obfuscated in today's Bangladesh? Do you think that Bengaliness that really identified those people as opposed to the Urdu-speaking West chunk is valid anymore?
It's a very good question. If you go to the Bangladesh passport office in Kolkata, there's a VIP lounge where it's written in bold on the wall. So one of the things that Sheikh Mujibur Rahman said, he said that this land is not the land of Hindus, this land is not the land of Muslims, this land is anybody's who considers it his land. So that quote is still there. So if it's there in the Bangladesh, on the wall of the VIP lounge of Bangladesh passport office, I think some of it is still there in Bangladesh's polity and society. What we are, I think, talking about is how much of it is there. I think I don't know. There's so many ways I can attempt to answer your question. I do not claim to. I have never met her. I have not. I have only read about her. I have heard her speeches, and I have heard about her from journalists and writers and civil society members who stay in Dhaka and have met her or know her to some degree. I would like to believe that Sheikh Hasina herself is holds on to that idea very strongly, even if her party in its entirety do not. I think I'm treading on very sort of problematic ground here, but I think she herself holds on to that idea because I'll tell you this. I think one of the markers of quote unquote secularism, I don't know what it means anymore, is that if you can sort of be, if you do not other somebody else in your personal life, you can say all kinds of things. A lot of people who call themselves secular, I because of what I do being a journalist for so long, I know a lot of our political leaders who call themselves secular just do it as a thing that sounds good before elections, but they are not secular when it comes to how they look at their own lives or the lives of their children. So I think if somebody is okay or has accepted the fact that her own children can marry outside their faith without converting, that definitely is a marker of their not being extremely rigid in their own identity, especially if parts of that identity has been used to others. You get what I'm saying? So I think to answer your question, Sheikh Mujib's daughter, Sheikh Hasina, who's now the premier of Bangladesh and has been so for past 16 years, I think somewhere in her own private space holds on to that idea. But the society as a whole, even her party, even certain sections of her party, has not been so. I won't get my full marks on this. Because how do you, I mean, it's all very fine to say all these things, but if there is an attack on Durga Puja pandals, if lives are lost, these are all lofty ideas that, okay, this person is that way, that person is that way. But I think there is also some amount of pushback because I think Islam has...
This pushback, is the tiny Hindu minority doing it or they have Muslim support?
They have Muslim support.
They do?
They do because I think there is now a question in Bangladesh not just about Hindu Muslim but about what kind of Muslim are you.
Okay.
So I think the Holy Artisan attack, if you remember, I mean, there's a film called Faraz, which was released in India. It was banned in Bangladesh, by the way. It's an uptown cafe in one of the most...
yes, they were asked to recite.
Yes, not just that. They were asked to recite, but it was not Hindus they killed. I mean, they just went to attack people who are westernized.
Correct.
People who have moved away from their faith. And who are these people? These are not Hindus. These are, I mean, there were Hindus there, but there were also vast number of Muslims, right? And it shook Bangladesh. Because
so that has contributed to them not wanting to go into that radicalized purity.
It has that I think in recent years, I think it is something, Alo, which is so shocking to them that the space, that Holy Artisan, the kind of families even the attackers came from, and the kind of people they killed, they were the topmost elite of Bangladeshi society, right? And if their children can be so radicalized that they are killing their own as in fellow Muslims, that where is Bangladesh heading? So I think it's a question Bangladesh is grappling with. I got a chance to meet the Home Minister of Bangladesh thrice, Asaduzzaman Khan, for my interviews for the print with him, and also for my book. I think it first because of my book. And he kept telling me that, we are going to fight terror. What terror is he fighting? He's fighting Islamic terror. And you'd be surprised he used the word Islamic terror. He didn't just say terror. And that's something. He's a practicing Muslim. So I think Bangladesh as a society is also grappling with this.
Okay.
That because see, you had also, what was it that Bangladesh was moving away from? It was language. It was the clash of Bangla versus Urdu, right? Bangladesh, do you know that Shah Rukh Khan's Jawan has released and it's doing well across India. It has also been released in Bangladesh. There is a Bangladeshi Muslim producer-director who has opposed the film, and he's saying that why is the film being shown? Because you are saying it's in Hindi, but there's a lot of Urdu there. And Urdu was used to sort of stop us from becoming us.
So there is that
Can
consciousness.
you imagine? There is that consciousness. And I'll tell you, so when I move around in Bangladesh, it's Bangladeshi Muslims who I am with. And I sometimes play sort of Hindi music because long 5 or 6 hour long journey. And if there are sort of Urdu words, I see them cringe. I mean, they don't really ask me to stop the music, but they're like,
so that's very different from Ziaul Haq, who tried to Arabize Urdu.
Absolutely.
Whereas here they resist Urduization
so
of Bangla.
It's two ideas of Bangladesh, both Muslim, that are fighting each other, right? And the idea of the sort of Army League and Mujibur Rahman, to a large extent, wanted to include Hindus in that. But I think the picture is pretty grim, because a large part of society has been is extremely sort of problematically anti-Hindu.
See, now the problem here is that, you might have Mujib's vision, you might have the vestiges of that vision in Sheikh Hasina. But the big change that has happened constitutionally with Bangladesh from 1971 to today is that Bangladesh is now officially an Islamic Republic.
Yes.
So now, where is the space for that? Because I'll tell you, you are a Bengali, I am a Bengali. When I think of Bangla literature, I will never look at Qazi Nazrul Islam as a Muslim. It's not there in my consciousness. He's part of Bengali literature. He's part of Bengali poetry. So similarly, I would imagine that the Bangladeshi Muslim would look at Tagore the same way.
Yeah.
So there is an undeniable way by which we are linked, and yet today the constitution doesn't allow secularism that will allow this sort of coexistence to flourish, because it is an Islamic state. How big is that problem, really? This technical...
The problem is big. Did you happen to read my piece for the print on Tagore in Bangladesh? I wrote a piece on Tagore in Bangladesh. Where is the space for Tagore in Bangladesh? There's this Major General, I can't take his name because he asked me not to, who is a very decorated army officer in Bangladesh, and he's sort of, now he's into other things. He's also a businessman and all that. He proudly shows off his collection of Tagore's works in his library, and he quotes from Tagore. And when I was interviewing him, without taking his name, of course, for the book, he kept referring to Tagore. However, in Dhaka University, which has who goes to Dhaka University, professors and students, right? And all of them are young. There is a sizable portion of the student population, the Muslim student population, who look at Tagore very differently than, perhaps Tagore thought people would look at him. But when I have tried to reason with them that why they do so, they kind of, they say that it's not because Tagore was a Hindu. It's because Tagore was a Hindu zamindar.
Oh, okay.
And there is a history of oppression of that class against Muslims. And they also point out that where is the Bengali Muslim in Tagore's work? It did not exist. Why is there not even minor characters in Tagore's works where the Muslim is being spoken about? There are, though, but I wanted their side of the story. But you asked me whether it's discriminatory against.
No, I'm talking about What do you do with an Islamic Republic now? And yet your attempt to hold on to that secular idea.
Specifically, there are two laws that I find problematic. The Enemy Property Act, which became the Vested Property Act, and there is an attempt from the government side to dilute that and to change that and to give back. So Sheikh Hasina government is trying to give back property that was taken away from Hindus, to give them back to their families. Yeah. But that's in the space of ideas. The actual implementation have to be looked at more. This thing, but it's extremely discriminatory. Even the name of the act is Enemy Property Act.
Correct.
Who's the enemy? There is the Digital Securities Act, which kind of sounds okay, not non-discriminatory, but that act has been used to spread hate against Hindus. So anything that's put out on Facebook or Twitter or on YouTube or Instagram or on TikTok by a Hindu YouTuber, or that can be construed to be blasphemous, and that person can rot in jail So there are aspects of daily living which are very discriminatory to the Hindu. Like these two acts that I can think of right now. But for instance, if you're a Hindu who wants to marry a Muslim, what happens? Do you know there's a special marriage act, but you have to go and declare that you're an atheist. So you can't say that as a practicing Hindu you're marrying a practicing Muslim. So you have to say you're an atheist to two atheists getting married. So you have to.
Also, the Muslim also has to become an atheist.
Yes.
But that is actually apostasy, which is punishable by death in pure Islam.
Yes, so that doesn't happen in Bangladesh.
Okay.
Daily discrimination may or may not take place depending upon your privilege. For instance, if you are an elite Muslim, Bangladeshi Muslim who's married a Hindu, you might be attacked on Facebook or whatever. But your daily life, you have privilege, so you can continue to be an actor, an actress, or sort of a big businessman. Life may not be so rosy if you are a village Muslim who's marrying a village Hindu. You can end up dead. But even those things have happened. It's not as if they have not happened, but it raises an eyebrow. But to be fair, it raises an eyebrow this side of the border as well. I mean, a Hindu-Muslim marriage is not something that's celebrated anywhere in South Asia. No. But the daily life, is the state discriminating against the Hindu? Not verbally, not perhaps, at least for Sheikh Hasina, not verbally, not in terms of what she says, but in terms of what happens down the ladder. It's not a rosy picture. I think it leaves a lot to be desired.
So like you said, I can't remove, I think by the sheer shared history of our language and our literature and our culture and our love of our cinematic heroes, we are, whether we like it or not, we are happy with a sort of syncretic idea of the Bengali across borders. But to what extent would you attribute this syncretism with the Hindus and Muslims within Bangladesh?
I think the most honest answer perhaps to this is it depends on area to area. Like for instance, in Dhaka it's very different because it's your capital city. Like if you look at Delhi, do you think the rest of India is like that? It's not. If you go to Bombay, is the rest of India like that? No. So Dhaka is different. I mean, there are spaces which are very different. Like for instance, one of the pictures I took on my phone, that in this temple in Dhaka, Ramna Kalibari, very famous temple in Dhaka. We went on a Sunday and there were women in burqas who were sitting in front of the idol, not worshipping, but talking to each other. It was a lovely picture. On a Sunday morning, they're just casually talking to each other while there were Hindus around them praying. Right? Now, imagine if you think that where you are sitting or the idol that you are facing is an attack on your faith and you need to attack it back, then that space would not have been there. So hard Islam would prevent you from even being in that space and so casually talking to your friend. But they were looking at the statue and they were sort of talking. And this is in Dhaka. Now let's go to Magura, which is around 5 or 6 hours from Dhaka. Remote space in area in Bangladesh. The village Muslims and the village Hindus, more village Muslims, because I think the people I met, the Muslims I met there are financially better off than the Hindus. There is I think 200-300-year-old Kali temple that got washed away by flood water. And they have rebuilt a makeshift temple for Hindus. And this is in a remote place in Bangladesh. To say that it does not exist would be a lie. It is also equally true that temples are attacked in Bangladesh with unfailing regularity. So, what is the truth? I think the truth is, there's no one truth. I think it's two ideas of Bangladesh. Like I said, two ideas of Bangladesh that is clashing into one another. So, there are no easy answers. Our friend Anand Ranganathan won't like this answer because he says
it's grey.
It's grey. But it is grey. I mean, there's no other way of saying this because I have seen it with my eyes. It's not some book I have read or a report that I have been there, and I did not, what I do Alo, because I take some time to write my books, and this book took 2 years. I've gone and stayed there. So when you stay in a place now, when you stay there for days, something will slip. Yes. Suppose I'm interviewing me or you are interviewing me. I may say things which sound good. It's only when I get to know you better do I know that you do not stand for what you're saying. So I have lived in those villages, in those village homes, and I have seen how and there is during Eid, there was a Kobigan, in that Mahura village, and the Muslims of the village, they broke their fast and they came to listen to that Kobigan in large numbers. So that's the syncretism. You can't deny it. But there is also an equally, if not more, opposing force against it.
So, this is just my last but one question. If you'll allow me to talk to you about West Bengal a little bit, but we still on Bangladesh. So, yes, you talk about syncretism. Yes, intrinsically, the language binds us, despite the religion, a Muslim and a Hindu might follow. But inevitably, do you think the space for tolerance is shrinking?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There are no two ways about it. I think we can go on talking about syncretism, and I will, know me. But do I deny what's happening? How can you deny it? See, I come with a lot of privilege. I go there. I'm sort of protected. I go there, talk to people, come back, write my book. I stay in Delhi, Kolkata. I'm not a Hindu in Bangladesh. I know what he goes through. I know how he has to sometimes hide his identity. So I know that he sort of sometimes is also apologetic for who he is, or he has to speak in a manner which he may not like of sometimes, But is it the only thing that's happening to him? No, it's not. I mean, there is also sort of support from the other community for him to be. Because if you
that might be more at a personal rather than a
that may be more at a personal rather than at a societal level. So I think I also think, I don't know, I don't want to sound pessimistic, but a lot of people, even Bangladeshi Muslim, some of the Bangladeshi Muslim intellectuals have said that in 20-30 years that there are going to be no Hindus in Bangladesh.
So this is the only context, and my last question to you, this is when the demography and West Bengal and the raison d'etre of the partition can finally be discussed, So gradually we are actually seeing the purge of Bangladesh and getting rid of the non-Muslims. Whereas we do know, because of the way partition was handled and how the exchange of population was halted, that not only was West Bengal left with a lot of Muslim population, but now there is, curiously, there is not as much Hindu influx as much as there is
curiously,
a blind eye to demographic change with Muslims. So where do you see society, especially in West Bengal, going? I mean, where is the Bengali Hindu, irrespective of Bangladesh or West Bengal?
The Bengali, who is the Bengali Hindu? The Bengali, the city Hindus in Bengal, West Bengal, I think would like to hold on to syncretism, and it's a wonderful idea, perhaps. But I'm saying perhaps because I don't have anything against syncretism. What I have against is turning your face away from reality. You can't talk syncretism to somebody who's been attacked, right? Like my mother did not have the privilege that I have. So this debate I have with my mother, she has a very different stance, for instance, because it's a lived reality that she could not stay where she was born. I think it borders on an area of concern, deep concern. West Bengal, if you see demographic change which is not organic, which is sort of forced, and if you have villages where even in even in an independent, even within independent India, where your faith is practicing your faith can be called into question from time to time. I think this is how you handle it, though, is sort of it's a can of worms when you start talking about how you handle that situation. But I didn't think of it. I think of this, the line you said, that more Bangladeshi Muslims are coming into West Bengal than more Bangladeshi Hindus. And you would think that since they're constantly under attack, Bangladeshi Hindus would shift. Some of them are, but not in large numbers. I think more Bangladesh, they're coming because of economics. And the reason they're coming is economics. They're coming due to work that they get on the side of the border. But is it changing not just demography, but the way of life in certain spaces? Yes, I think there is it's something that should be looked at more deeply beyond the scope of politics. I think societally also it should be looked at. It should be looked at academically. We take very easy sides. This is right, this is wrong. But I think that's something that people should focus on more often than they do. The demographic change in West Bengal.
Yes. So Deep, thank you so much.
Thank you, Alo.
You have always been my window to my roots, as I say, and this interview hasn't been any less.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the space and time. And you are very indulgent. I mean, I get to speak my mind, even if I don't always agree with you or you don't agree with me. So I think which is wonderful, which is how it should be.
Yes, absolutely. We are argumentative and that's nice.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Alo.